Tonight, calls on the province to do more to prevent violence against healthcare workers.
Been punched, I've been kicked, I've been scratched.
A union representing hospital workers is demanding employers and the province not to turn a blind eye after a new survey finds a majority experience violence on the job. Plus,
when you lose your love, your son, is the worst thing that a person can happen to.
It's key that we talk about next steps.
the Prime Minister joined by Raptors President Masai Ujiri and members of the community to talk about ways to tackle gun violence and keep communities safe. And
the saying goes, you have to spend money to make money.
just weeks after Toronto was chosen as a host city for the 2026 World Cup, the price tag has already gone up by $10 million. Will the benefits outweigh the costs? Good evening, I'm Kelda Yoon. We begin with breaking news tonight. Sources in direct contact with the family tell CBC News the woman who was deliberately set on fire at a TTC station last month has died. Now, the incident happened on Friday, June 17th at Kipling Station. The woman in her 20s was set on fire while on a TTC bus in what Toronto police called a random and hate-motivated attack. An online fundraiser was set up by the woman's sister a few days ago, saying she was in hospital on life support. It also said the woman worked as a caregiver. 33-year-old Tenzin Norbu of Toronto is facing several charges in relation to the incident. In an email to CBC, Toronto police confirmed they are aware of the woman's death and that homicide investigators have been notified. A new survey of healthcare workers by the Canadian Union of Public Employees points to an alarming amount of physical and sexual violence experienced on the job. One worker we heard from today recounted numerous incidents of violence at work, ultimately forcing him to find a new job. Lorenda Redekop has this story.
Dave Virch worked for 33 years as a registered practical nurse in Ottawa at this continuing care facility for seniors and others with chronic illness.
I've been punched, I've been kicked, I've been scratched. I've had things thrown at me. Unfortunately, sometimes it was urine or worse. And it happens in the workplace.
Now he works with his union, the Ontario Council of Hospital Workers, part of CUPE.
Every day, hundreds of healthcare workers are hit, sexually assaulted, racially attacked, and verbally harassed in Ontario hospitals.
The union represents 50,000 hospital staff, including RPNs, cleaners, and clerical workers, mostly women. Of the 2,300 members surveyed, 63% said they experienced physical violence from patients or family members. 14% said daily. 78% said they experienced non-physical violence, such as name-calling, insults, threats, or threatening gestures. 25% said daily. Plus, 49% said they experienced sexual harassment. 36% said they experienced sexual assault, such as groping or inappropriate touching.
Staff are leaving, and this is one of the reasons.
Virch believes women have it worse than he did.
I'm a big guy. I think maybe patients or families think twice about, slurring a comment or a physical assault, but I think there's less restraint when it comes to a female coworker.
In the survey of respondents who identify as racialized, 71% say the abuse or harassment they receive is connected to their race or ethnicity.
We are here to demand that the management of these hospitals, the Premier, and the new Health Minister not look the other way, not to be silent.
The Ontario Hospital Association says it takes its obligation seriously to ensure workplaces are free from violence and that it will continue to take steps to make that happen. The union also wants protection for people who speak up.
I actually didn't, which is a terrible example I'm setting, but no, I did unfortunately just, accept the violence.
He hopes others will come forward. Lorenda Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
An update to a story we first brought you last night. The City of Toronto is apologizing after 6 security guards were let go over a so-called no beard rule. The city now says it will immediately allow for under-mask beard covers as a form of religious accommodation for guards at city sites that require N95 respirators. The method involves a tight-fitting covering worn over the beard, as well as the chin and cheeks tied in a knot at the top of the head. An N95 mask is then worn over that covering. The measure comes after the city called on its contractors to immediately reinstate 6 security staff who were let go over the rule. The city adds the guards should be appropriately compensated for any financial impact. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was in town today, joined by Raptors President Masai Ujiri for a roundtable discussion with community leaders on combating gun violence. Among those they heard from, a woman who lost her son in a shooting. Ali Chiasson has more.
Yes, we see a debate around gun control, but there's not a debate around whether our communities need to be safer.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Toronto Raptors President Masai Ujiri were here to listen, but more pressingly,
It's key that we talk about next steps.
in attendance were community leaders, some who run programs that try to keep kids on a positive, healthy track instead of falling into a life of crime or falling victim to it. It was an hour-long, private roundtable conversation.
It was more about putting pressure on Trudeau, and Masai also helped put on pressure that these issues have been going in the community for decades, honestly, and in some aspects are actually getting worse. I've come to many of these meetings. This is not the first time. And there needs to be concrete movement from here, to be completely honest.
Take it from Shamso Mohammed, whose son, Abdi Karim, was shot and killed in 2008 while out with some friends.
When you lose your love, your son, is the worst thing that a person can happen to.
She spoke about how families of gun violence victims need mental health support to deal with the trauma.
This was great that Masai Ujiri really invited us here so that our voices can be incorporated on that table.
I was so happy talking in front of him and showing, as a victim mother, how we are in this country.
One of the biggest takeaways was the need for consistent funding in community programs for families and children. It's not just about gun bans.
It's about the things that come with it. So we're talking education, poverty, mental health, so many more things that these communities need. And especially, I think one of the biggest things came out, in my opinion, there was the need to really focus on these children specifically in these communities and give them opportunities that aren't short term. So we have a lot of these programs will give you 2 years of funding or 6 months of funding. Then when those programs are done, we have nothing for these kids.
Very important for me.
While there have been roundtables and town halls on this topic before, some left this one feeling hopeful.
I believe change will come because he feels that this is an epidemic and we have to fight like how we fight with COVID.
Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
While in Toronto today, the Prime Minister also had a closed-door meeting with Mayor Tory. The mayor says some city projects have been paused as the city seeks more money from other levels of government to balance the books.
The Prime Minister is from Montreal, but he's the Prime Minister of all of Canada. I get in trouble when I talk about the importance that this city has in terms of the strength of our economy and it being the economic engine of the country, because people in other parts of the country don't necessarily like me to say that, but it's the truth. And I just want to keep it that way and make sure that Toronto can be strong so all of Canada can be strong.
Back in May, city staff pointed out a hole in emergency COVID funding and said capital work would need to be stopped without aid from the other levels of government. Mayor Tory says the pandemic is the reason for the shortfall. Rachel Modestino from the Weather Network joins us now with a first look at the forecast. Rachel, so good to have you. How's it looking out there?
I mean, it's looking very ideal if you're into the cooler and calmer summer. Have a look at our Wednesday morning. Textbook feels like 20 degrees and plenty of sunshine to go around. We're going to be warming up with a touch of humidity, feeling like 29, but it is July and that is still below seasonal, that 25-degree mark. The city of Toronto should be around 27 for this time of year. Scattered cloud cover to start off our morning and afternoon, but high pressure in place, so we're going to see plenty of sunshine this week along with a very stable atmosphere. But with that, it does come with the UV index quite high, especially if you're traveling in through London, where we have that high 10 UV index, but the city of Toronto will be sitting at 8. It's still quite high, so you're going to want to take extra precautions, hats, extra UV protection, and maybe staying inside. It's not only Wednesday we're going to be seeing this, it's going to persist into Thursday as well, with that humidity really building in areas around the lakeshore. A little bit of an easterly breeze, so a little bit quite cooler, but as we compare that into our Thursday, that humidity does pick up. We'll be feeling closer to 31 with plenty more sunshine to come. I will give you a little bit more in your long range.
Thanks so much, Rachel. To developing news now. The Conservative Party of Canada says Brampton Mayor Patrick Brown has been disqualified from the leadership race. The party, in a statement late tonight, says in recent weeks our party became aware of serious allegations of wrongdoing by the Patrick Brown campaign that appear to violate the financial provisions of the Canada Elections Act. Following our rules and procedures for the 2022 leadership, the chief returning officer notified the Patrick Brown campaign of the allegations and asked for a written response. He also withheld the interim membership list from the Patrick Brown campaign. Now, the statement goes on to say that the party was dissatisfied with the response from the Brown campaign and therefore disqualified his candidacy. Well, Mayor Tory is asking for the green light from City Council to move ahead with planning for 3 major downtown park projects. This includes a new waterfront green space at the bottom of Bathurst Street. Greg Ross has the details.
The mayor threw his support behind a new proposal today that aims to create more outdoor recreation space and amenities downtown.
They'll provide beautiful new parks and public spaces for everyone who lives here, who works here, and who visits here.
City staff are proposing 3 new parks. One is just steps from Bathurst and Queens Quay on the waterfront.
A new park at Bathurst Quay will repurpose an aging and money-losing city-owned parking lot just over there as the structural foundation for a new signature waterfront park.
The new Bathurst Quay Park would utilize this space on the eastern side of the old Canada Malting Company, and they include a unique way of incorporating those old silos which have been designated an historic site.
The eastern side of the silos are really a possible large movie screen. It will be amazing attraction for people to come watch a movie and all kinds of other things.
Another proposal would see the redevelopment of University Avenue to create nearly 9 acres of new green space.
There's a very wide center median. Well, if you can imagine this, well, what if that wide center median was pushed to one side and the traffic was all on the other side?
We have an opportunity to transform University Avenue that provides continuous public green space connecting the financial district, the health science district, and the University of Toronto campus.
The final proposal is to repurpose some of the failed ideas from the Rail Deck Park. The hope is they can include this in any future development projects in the area.
This developer A is doing a project. Well, what can we leverage out of that development project process to have some parts of the big vision at least come to life?
Urban planners say green space is already in short supply downtown.
There's absolutely a need, especially if the downtown core is growing and more population is coming to Toronto and essentially to downtown Toronto. It's pretty lacking in open space in a sense of, a destination programming, a place to take your toddler.
If City Council gives the nod to move ahead with these plans, construction on the parks is projected to begin in 2026. But the mayor says he's looking into ways to speed up that timeline. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
Welcome back. Hayley Wickenheiser has been promoted by the Toronto Maple Leafs. The team says she will now serve as assistant general manager in charge of player development. Wickenheiser became a household name in Canada as the longtime captain of Canada's Olympic gold medal hockey team. And she's been busy ever since, completing a medical degree after her playing career and fundraising in the healthcare sector during the pandemic. In her new role, Wickenheiser will continue to work closely with GM Kyle Dubas. Just weeks after Toronto was selected as a host city for the 2026 World Cup, the cost of the games has already gone up. While some experts say the benefits will still outweigh the costs, others question whether the millions could be better spent. Our Jessica Ng reports.
When France won the last FIFA World Cup, soccer fans packed into bars, filled parks and viewing spaces, and flooded the streets in celebration. You can bet there will be even more fanfare when Toronto hosts some of the matches in 2026. But just weeks after Toronto and Vancouver were named as Canadian host cities, a report to Council has increased projected costs by $10 million to a total of $300 million.
It's really hard for me to to fathom that these costs would stay at the same level they are 4 years from now.
City staff tell CBC News the new cost estimate for the games includes the recent rise in inflation, plus 10% more funds if needed.
So the question then becomes, is the return on investment going to yield the benefits that the city and the province and the federal government believe hosting this event will bring to the city?
The provincial and federal governments are expected to cover up to 2/3 or $184 million. Toronto will front up to $77 million for the matches, plus another $24 million in municipal services, including hiring 9 temp employees. The city will also host a more than month-long FIFA Fan Fest and expand BMO Field with at least 15,000 temporary seats.
The costs you can expect are going to be quite high, but at the same time, it really depends on what each individual country wants to achieve in terms of a legacy. You have to spend money to make money.
Settler, who has experience with marketing for soccer and CONCACAF, says making the games great will yield more place branding for the city.
In terms of potential immigration, in terms of foreign direct investment.
Like when Vancouver hosted the Winter Olympics, but advocates have similar worries as they did with the 2010 Games, namely that the money may be better spent elsewhere.
The housing sector could definitely benefit specifically from that $10 million. It will be, a great event in 4 years. However, we need to really take a deep look into how we spend that money.
Toronto's executive committee will vote to approve the additional funding next week. Jessica Ng, CBC News, Toronto.
All right, let's go back to Rachel Modestino from the Weather Network. And Rachel, lots of sun and humidity over the next few days.
Yes, exactly that. That is the forecast over the next few days, but taking a look at your long-range forecast as we head into the weekend, you're going to want to keep in mind we have an extreme fire danger rating around the city of Toronto. So if you're going camping or maybe lighting any sort of campfires, you're going to want to keep that in mind and check on the regulations in the city. It has been quite a dry June. Having a look at the numbers, we've had barely over half of our monthly average rainfall for the month of June. And really in the past the end of the month, we've only seen 14 millimeters. So if you're around the GTA and you're seeing that your grass is quite dry, well, I'm sure lots of us are experiencing that. Our trend that has spilled into June has been a story of more so deflecting a lot of that precipitation into Quebec. So it's been a quite dry pattern, and that dry does continue throughout the next 7 days. We could maybe see some thunderstorms as we end off the weekend, but it is going to be a story of that more dry and inconsistent weather. Not a lot of heat. Let's have a look at our long-range pattern for July. You can see a touch above seasonal, but that big blue area, that's going to be bringing us some cooler conditions. Also, some frequent cold fronts passing through for this month of July. So for the city of Toronto, as we head throughout this month, we'll be expecting to see a couple of different things, and I'll outline them now. So we're going to be seeing more of those cold fronts bringing more rain chances than what we saw for the month of June. So into July, we can see more of those rain chances, some more frequent cold fronts, but also some short, brief visits of summer heat. So if you're not a fan of the extreme heat or the heat that lingers around for quite some time, then this will be the month for you. We'll see some stretches of more comfortable and seasonal weather as well. So a great forecast coming up for this month.
Thanks so much, Rachel. Finally tonight, most ballet dancers begin at a very early age, but Toronto's Patricia Perka didn't start dancing until she was 37. Now, at age 45, she's been accepted to the National Ballet School's teacher training program, and she hopes to inspire others to reach for their dreams.
I mean, I was 37 when I got into my first class, which for ballet is considered quite late. Many, if not most people, start ballet in their childhood. It's considered something that you need to have a lot of training for when you're very young and when the body's still developing. And so it was definitely a challenge to come in with a fully matured body and build everything that ballet needs in terms of physical qualities like strength and power and flexibility, but also the artistry and understanding the combination of physicality and artistic expression. It just takes a lot of time and patience, and also being smart about how to approach it, so to not injure the body or break it down from too much training or demanding too much of the body. For example, when it comes to flexibility, you have to be very patient to build up to a split, for example. But it's possible. If you take the time, if you engage in a regular and consistent ballet practice, if you work with good teachers, then it's absolutely possible for an adult to get into ballet and get better at ballet, get good at ballet, just like for children. The process might look a little different.
2, right through your back, 3.
I am the mother of a 15-year-old kid. He has a physical disability and uses a wheelchair. I love seeing him wanting to improve his movement. Even though he has those physical limitations, he has such a passion and drive to move and to move better. And it's really teaching me that ability doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter where someone is starting from. Every body craves movement and learning movement. You know, ballet historically has been quite exclusive, elitist, and, you know, kind of requiring people to start very young and have the perfect body. And that is changing now, and I think that's beautiful. I think it's beautiful to make ballet accessible to people no matter what physical ability they have, what kind of body type. We just start at a certain point and then we get better. And that relative improvement is what counts, not where we started from. So in a way, my son is still attempting to learn how to walk with his canes, and he wants to learn how to walk unassisted, maybe for short distances. And so in a way, we're in a very similar situation. Like he's working on his walking at a late time of his life, and I'm working on my dancing at a late time in my life. So I see a lot of parallels, even though it's different things, but the basic principles of learning and the idea of it doesn't matter where you're starting from, that's the same, and that's beautiful.
And that is our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Dwight Drummond has your next local newscast tomorrow at 6. I will see you back here tomorrow night at 11. Have a great night, everyone.